As the Chief Nursing Officer for a hospital system in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, our next speaker still bleeds scarlet and gray, having earned her doctorate in nursing practice right here. She's seen it all, and she puts her vast experience to work in this next story. Please welcome Dr. Loraine Frank-Lightfoot.
I like to win. Whether it's a game of cards, watching the Buckeyes shoot it out on a Saturday afternoon, or tackling a tough problem at work and coming out on the other side, I like to win. I took a job in a new state with a new team and a new facility in May of 2020. I mean, this new disease, COVID, was it really going to be that big of a deal? Oh my, I underestimated it. And I found myself in early 21 with having lost a lot of team members because they were afraid to work with COVID patients and also because they were challenged with the wave after wave. We created units where we didn't have units before, and our staffing was very challenged. So in early 21, we needed every nurse to go back to the bedside, and that included me. I needed to set a good example for my team and show them that I could do everything that I was asking them to do. Now, I'm a market chief nurse. I have 5 hospitals, the largest being over 900 beds. The last time I had a full patient assignment was in 2004, and that was back when we did paper charting. So I signed up to work night shift on Saturday nights, and when I went in that first night, it was rainy and cold and dark, and I remember looking up at the sign on the building and thinking, hey, please do not let me fall on my face. I want to do a good job, and I want to be there to support the team. I'm an old critical care nurse, and so that's where I worked, in critical care. And as I walked into the unit, they told me, you're getting the first admission. It's an unstable patient coming up from the emergency department that needs a tube put in to help them breathe, probably a large bore line to give them medications and fluids, and an arterial line. So as I helped the intensivist, a critical care physician, stabilize this patient, it came back like riding a bike. And after we got the patient stabilized and he walked out of the room, he looked at me and said, you still got it. Win for Lorraine. But the really good thing that night was I got a lot of joy out of working with the team, but I also made a lot of observations. We didn't have transportation at night. So if you needed to take your patient to radiology, you had to take another nurse with you. We didn't have enough housekeeping support, so the nurses had to pull the trash and linen. I'd already identified that I had work to do to make the work life of nurses better, and this further deepened my resolve. I'm a performance improvement geek. I love lean projects. I love taking a nugget of an idea and morphing it into something that is so much better. And so over the ensuing months, as I rounded on the staff, I have routine lunches with the staff, I was asking the nurses, what are the frustration points in your work? What are the things that don't bring you joy and that don't add to your nursing practice? And then on the other side, what are the things that bring you joy and what do you enjoy doing? We did some small tests of change during that time, a lot of stuttering starts and stops, mostly related to the pandemic, as we had wave after wave. My largest facility is over 900 beds, and we service patients in 3 states. We have capacity issues. We have more patients that want to come into the building than we ever have beds for. And my non-nursing colleagues say things like, tell the nurses to work harder. Tell the nurses to discharge those patients by 11 a.m. Well, I am not blessed with magical thinking. I live in the real world and know that just because you say those things doesn't make it happen. But I'm not a med-surg nurse. And so I wanted to directly observe the nurses working. And so I spent several shifts with nurses on my big med-surg units. Holy cow, these folks are amazing. They're in a 1 to 6 patient assignment. It takes them 25 to 35 minutes in the morning to pull the medications out of Pyxis. They get interrupted a lot. Calls for transportation, calls from radiology, they need to talk to the physician. Yes, I'm happy to talk to Mrs. Jones's daughter for the 3rd time in 45 minutes. And then you go to the bedside and your barcode scanner dies, the battery dies in the middle of passing your beds, and guess what? We're short dietary aides today. So nurses, can you pass the trays? Housekeeping's a little short. Nurses, can you pull the trash and linen? There's a lot of frustration points for them. I left after those shifts, even with more resolve, to make the work-life balance for my nurses better. And so I pulled together a group of more than a dozen med-surg nurses, several of my med-surg managers, several of my med-surg directors, and a facilitator, and we spent an entire day doing a lean project. I was absolutely in my element. And what I had the nurses do first was to write every single thing that they do on a different sticky note. And we had put paper up in the front of the auditorium that started at 0700 and ended at 0600 the next day. And I asked them to put the sticky note during the hour when they were supposed to be doing that task. The group of us stepped back and took a look at it, and it was a bit of a gut punch, because what we realized was that the first 4 hours of a nurse's shift had so much work to do, there was no way they could get it all done. My nurses didn't have the capacity to create capacity because they were at capacity. And so we worked on a variety of different things. We created some forums and some buckets of work. And over the next 6 months, I continued my partnership with those nurses to improve things. We've added some new positions. We've moved some of the fluff medications to a later time. We're working on some automation for pharmacy and working to move things so that the nurses have the ability to get all of the work done that they need to do. It's not perfect. It's better. It's not perfect. We still have a lot of work to do. But through this entire process, I've had a lot of joy. I had a lot of joy in working directly with the nurses, in seeing the improvements that we've made, and knowing that I'm making the work life better for my nurses. So in the end, it's a win for the nurse, the patient, the team, our organization, and ultimately me. And I like to win.